All right, everybody. Hello and welcome. This is Super Happy Dragon Lucky episode 26, 0x26. And we're here today. We have some good updates on DIN, some new features, and on a new sales program. We'll start off with talking about coronavirus, as always, every week until this stuff is all done and we're able to open back up. That it's still what's happening in the world, and hopefully where you are, it will open up sooner than here. I think they're going to try to delay it here for probably political reasons, but in Washington. But who knows? Everything I will tell you when we go out, drive around. Do grocery pickup and things like that. It is definitely opening up. There's definitely a lot more traffic. People are walking the dog. People are, still trying to be safe, but it's not as crazy full of fear as it was a few weeks ago. So that's all good. There's a lot of crazy politics and a lot of things that are very interesting about the development and the distribution of the virus. So, things like that. Who knows what will happen? But good for Bitcoin probably. If you're watching the Bitcoin right now, between the halving and the world economic situation, it's probably a perfect storm. So keep that in mind. Yes. Look at the matter. I'm wondering if we might start measuring matter in terms of how many days of matter have you mined, or weeks, right? I've got 2 weeks of matter. So, there's a lot of good activity. Look, there's only 44 subscribers in the coronavirus layer. So it is, there's tons of good info in this layer. And in particular, I'm not on trending, I don't think, but if you look at what's in here, there's always a lot of good info early, because sometimes it's coming from more independent news sources, or sometimes directly from some of the studies. But either way, a lot of really good info in there. Next, we will go to a new article by our own Bit by the Coin. Really good, in-depth article about a WEF, a World Economic Forum article that was published, I believe, on Cointelegraph, about blockchain interop. And there was a long article last week that was brilliant about Dragonchain's own interop and the fact that it is operational, and giving a lot of the facts and figures. This one very much goes point by point through the article on Cointelegraph about interop and the actual availability of interop, and of course the fact that they do say that in the industry, and we do understand, if you're talking industry as a whole, we do agree that that interop is immature, that most of the people focused on interop in the blockchain space don't consider or maybe understand the whole picture of what interop is and or should be. Yet to say that it's not there, that it's not impossible, is crazy. It's ignoring the facts, and it's maybe a shallow understanding, which is understandable. It's a big org. They're probably being fed info by, we know they're being fed info by paid consultants that have other directions in mind, that they're going to sell to the WEF or to related orgs, or to orgs that pay attention to this report. That's what they do. They sell consulting time, and the more work that people have, the more money it means for these consulting groups, and that's the name of the game. That's how things work in the real world. And so this article, though, does address all of the individual pieces. And of course, look, it is It is stored on Eternal. It did go to Ethereum, yet it's gone to all of the interchains so far. It's a beautiful thing, right? Okay, so thanks for the article, Buy the Coin. It's beautiful. It's excellent. Next up, we have the DIN release, version 133, and how do I say this? The most important thing in this, from my perspective, was the reputation system. And it's important because this is the first release, so it does not mean it's perfect. What we want is to get feedback as much as possible from layer owners, and questions for that matter, because it is not absolutely a simple system. We've tried to make it as simple as possible, but this is the first iteration of the big vision of a crypto aware functionality for a community forum. And this is not the time reputation that will be coming for Dragon specific layers. This is the more general reputation system, and we in fact took a tack to focus on the general reputation before the time reputation, because we ended up with more layers that are focused on general info, you know, red pill, politics, coronavirus, cryptocurrency, and we didn't want to limit it to just Dragon holders. We're getting a lot of people in that are not Dragon holders, or you know, potentially aren't even cryptocurrency, blockchain, crypto Twitter people. So I'm going to demo that in a second. We also added the ability to set permissions for individual users inside of your layers. And then we did do an unauthenticated trending sort. We realized when people weren't logged in that it was giving them, I think, time-based. And what we're doing now is something that you would expect more from a normal Reddit style. If I'm not logged in, I at least get some info that makes sense. We're going to probably limit that to certain approved layers as we grow the number of layers on the system. But anyway, and this is all in advance of DIN spinning off it to an independent entity sometime in the near future. We have all the paperwork. We have the entity created, I believe, and we'll announce what that means and how it's going to work, including how governance will work, which you should be really interested in shortly. So let's get to this is the settings. So if you click on your settings in your browser or mobile even, you go to a list of, you can set your own personal settings, but you can go to a list of layers. And if I, click on any of them that I'm the owner on, let's say on Dragonchain, I want to look at subscribed users, and I can see, a set of them, and maybe let's see if I can find out. Here's Brian from Florida. Let's look at Brian from Florida. I can leave it default, so it shares what the global setting is for this layer, or I can say, okay, Brian can't vote, or Brian can vote if normally I have voting turned off, right? And it's a three-way switch. Very simple, very interesting. And that's a very clean way. It's kind of set up like Telegram, where Telegram you can go individually for every user inside of a channel or a group. And we kind of modeled it that way, but it'll let you fine tune if you have some people that you want to do some things that you aren't allowing most people to do especially before we get the lot ownership fully integrated. That will help you manage the layer much more easily. Next would be the reputation system, where as it was before we rolled out reputation, you can still turn off individual capabilities, like say to post an image or a video inside of a particular layer. But now also, if you turn on reputation, you can go in here and say, okay, for a video, anybody in the system can come and view Dragonchain posts in the Dragonchain layer. But if I want to say, okay, you have to have a better reputation to be able to post a video. Here's where you have to understand some of this, and you can take a couple of these defaults, but when you turn it on, it's a pretty low threshold. It's open threshold, so that basically 1 to 5 stars. If you look at this, and what this means is that site reputation can in contrast to layer reputation. So if you're a new user and you just subscribed to the Dragonchain layer, let's say you've posted elsewhere, and there are layers that are maybe more open. The red pill layer doesn't care what your reputation is. Controversy is fine there. Whereas we want to make sure there's at least a little bit of reputation evaluation that happens before you post a video to our layer. So I can say, move it up to, you have to have at least 3 stars to post a video here if you've never posted anything inside of Dragonchain before. And that means that only 111 users site-wide can post to this layer. However, once you come in to the layer, once you have a reputation that is established within Dragonchain, and you establish a reputation by commenting or posting, or offering up content and discussion, basically engaging inside that layer, that when you have at least 13 people that have voted on your reputation, whether that's up or down, then you have established enough of a reputation for us to evaluate, and that's when your layer reputation will be applied. And at which case, right now I'm saying it's pretty loose once you come in and develop a reputation. And the way the reason that we do this is because you're going to have different layers that have different cultures, and if you are posting across the entire site, some layers will be easier to develop a reputation in. However, it might be a different culture, and so we allow the use of that. And at the same time, if you want to, you can flip this, and it kind of depends upon the philosophy of the layer itself, that you can say you need a really high threshold to get in, and once you get in, we care a lot less. Once you are working in our community, maybe you have a stellar reputation in our community, maybe not. Maybe we're okay with having controversy as long as it is within our cultural definition. Versus maybe I allow entry in easily. Maybe I say, anybody can come in with a low threshold, but in order to post once you are in, you have to have an extremely high threshold of reputation inside of the layer. So that's kind of what that reputation system is, and we're going to get a lot more refinement around that, and of course we will be adjusting the algorithm as it is, if it's gamed and other things. But we've used all of the work that we did in beta in the economy. We've used since we rolled out into production, and this is where we are at with the generic reputation system, which is a pretty notable advantage, and we think should be valuable for keeping the cultures tunable. That you can make your layer fit your culture a lot better by restricting. And by the way, this could allow you also to make it harder to get a reputation to post, yet leave it very open for replies, so you can ask questions to people who are posting, and that way your main line of communication in the content can be very well focused based upon your culture, but the replies and the discussions can go really wide. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there, a lot of neat tuning. So next up is okay. We had let's see here. This was almost a month ago. We had an announcement that we pushed out a new sales incentive program, and this was in addition to what we had been using for a while, which is a very traditional system. And I worked with Trey, who I'm going to bring on now. Hello, Trey. And so we'd been working together for almost a year, probably a little more than a year prior to this, in trying to figure out how to refine the sales programs and how to expand the network. And this was part of that. So this was in addition. We increased the traditional numbers and to enhance how we were doing that, but then we also added some crypto to it, bounty. And so Trey, you want to tell us a little more about what we're doing and some of the things we've been putting together recently?
Sure. So we put out the incentive plan this month, and it basically has 2 tiers of compensation. You're going to have your monthly commissions, and then you'll also have a yearly bonus, and that will be based on your sales. And then we basically had a dozen community members sign up, and we've had another 16 outside the community sign up for the incentive program. So we've actually had over 7 projects, or 7 or 8 now, that have come to us through the community just within the last month that we're working on. One of them we've written up a contract on. 2 of them we have MOUs, and a few of them we're in the proposal stage. So really excited about the turnout and the quality of projects that are being brought. So, keep in mind with this incentive program, if you're not a salesperson and you don't have background, we're bringing the tools here for you to, get a little bit of comfort about the architecture and at least be comfortable to be able to refer and just use your network to grow the force. Because really, a lot of the projects that we're working on right now, they've come from the community. They're not cold calls where we're just picking up the phone. It's actually just working the network. And that's a real powerful piece of how this is all going to expand and adoption occurs. But we've also been working on some workshops this last 2 weeks. We've got 3 or 4 completed now. We've got a couple more decks that were completed. We're ready to film. And then we've got 6 more subject matters that we're going to be dealing more with functionality on, scalability, security, interoperability. So what we're doing is we're creating a sales tools kit for our sales force. And so you'll be able to actually have a console that has a customizable pitch deck. And it's really cool about these workshops is they're going to tie into the presentation pitch deck itself. And a lot of the narrative and even the agenda or the outline of the workshops will carry over into the presentation. So they're a great way to learn, but they're also a great way to kind of shape the narrative as you do your presentation. And, as far as the customization of the presentation goes, you'll be able to customize it based on the sector that you're in or the industry. You'll be able to add or subtract products based on their interest, and you'll actually be able to customize the length of the presentation based on the amount of face time that you expect to have in front of them. So we really are putting together a supportive toolkit for you guys so that you really have content to work from and makes the education process a little bit quicker and hopefully increase your success likelihood.
Yep, very, very much. And we do have all of the things we've been posting were very small snippets on LinkedIn of those workshops just to get interest and feedback. And all of those feed into joining the program, which will also get you entry into the private layer, within which anyone focused on adoption, sales, and so on will have all of the tools referred to and the ability to ask questions there, to get into discussions amongst themselves, to figure out even targets to go after, all of the things you would do. But we have a private layer set up to handle this, which will hopefully be pretty powerful to consolidate all the tools and the information, especially because questions asked about fintech, say, today, will be there, so that, and since it's a private layer and everyone will be signed in, we can at least talk a little more freely about things that are otherwise pretty tight, and especially about the capabilities as well, because a lot of times that's the key. If you can go in and you really know, and you can be confident in saying to a sales prospect that this really can be done, and it can be done today. It's not something that we're talking about in in 5 years as some pie in the sky blockchain magic. This is something that's already there, and we can already demonstrate it. And whether it's the security, the scalability, or particularly the features, I think we have focused a lot in those workshops on these core feature possibilities for these different industries. Things that can be built that either cannot be built without blockchain, and or would be very messy and very expensive to operate without blockchain. And it kind of still, so everybody knows, it does very much still follow that philosophy of selling on the capability instead of on the hype. We aren't trying to sell blockchain hype and saying this is the blockchain answer to fintech. That's not the goal, because that we've seen creates a lot of confusion. That it will, if it's an industry that is maybe not used to even talking about blockchain, they'll immediately go to tech press and see a lot of stuff that scares the crap out of them. Whereas instead, if you say, look, here's something that you could build, that you could augment your existing systems and build some new capability or bring in new money that's sitting on the table, that piques interest. And then they ask, well, how, and why is this any different? And then you can introduce the fact, well, underlying this capability is a blockchain. And underlying this, these security aspects and these identity features and things like that allow these things to be built, that opens up their mind, and it kind of opens up everything, where now we can really talk about what can be built instead of what is already out there. So anyway. And in his workshops, I talk too much, by the way. So if you go in there, you guys, Trey introduces it. But it's good when Trey talks, so I don't get sore throat and everything else, right? So that's everything I have. Do you have anything else you want to add to that, Trey?
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay.
We do have a potential partnership right now with a company that has 50 sales reps that are considering repping for us throughout the U.S. So that's on the table. That's very close to being an inked deal, but that will expand our sales force dramatically overnight. So
and all of this, by the way, was about scaling that selling process, right? Because sometimes you're selling a consultancy pattern. Sometimes you're selling, here's a product that we can integrate, and we might have some integration work along with it. But this was really about trying to scale it so that we can really get enough leads in the door that, and I'm not good at the sales lingo. I don't understand a lot of the processes that are normal, but the fact that we've seen, I've been too busy, as a lot of people know, in the past 3-4 weeks, because we're having a lot more calls than we were even, you think about it, during the coronavirus, during the lockdown, when I know a lot of pocketbooks are closed up. There are some that are more open, and we are working on a couple of projects that are related to that, and they're very important, right? And we're just trying to get the information that we need to the devs as fast as possible, and all the while trying to move the other deals forward, right? So it's a lot of work.
It's a bit busy.
Yeah. So thanks, Trey. It's really good stuff. And everybody else, tune in next week, same time, and subscribe and like this and everything else. We are broadcasting also on Periscope. So if you see us over there, thanks a bunch. We're doing, that's a new thing for us, and we're probably posting links to our snippets of these to LinkedIn, and we're going to consider other channels as well. So thanks a bunch, and see you next week.